All right, call the meeting to order. It's right at 6:30. Roll call shows that I am here, J.R. Smith-DeCoux. Councilor Moody is here. Councilor Swearingen, Councilor Schulte, Councilor Kennedy are all present. We also have Chris Hood, our attorney. We have Dave Tierstig, the Parks Manager. Kim Dunsmore, the Finance Director. Patrick Knight, Communications Director, and Mike Roth, City Administrator. That makes for a proud 10 people on the meeting. So there's our roll call. Do we have any? Yeah. So this is the emergency meeting. So we pretty much only can deal with emergency stuff. So we have a short list of things this evening. The statement that we made has been proliferated about. So that, Patrick, do you have that handy? I just exited out of your email that had it listed, but I could find it really quickly here too. Okay. City of Grand Marais encourages adherence to the CDC recommendations to social distance where possible and to wear cloth face coverings where not. These best practices allow us as a community to serve each other as best we can during the COVID emergency. Please respect the rules of each individual establishment. So that's kind of the compromise language that we came up with there. So is there anything else to say about that? Or with, if that's it, then we'll just move on to the park update. All right. Well, then I think let's move on to the park update. So we've got
Jay.
David. Oh yeah,
Jay.
What's up?
Well, I had just had a question for Patrick. I had heard that there was some issue with the audio on the last couple of our meetings. Have you heard that, Patrick? And has that been resolved? Okay, and you're satisfied that we're probably that people are going to be able to hear what we're saying? Okay, that's all I had.
Cool. All right. So Dave and Craig, you guys had a meeting. So fill us in on what the call was that you made at the park board. So I don't know if Dave wants to start or Craig.
Yeah, Dave. I was on my cell phone, so apparently the meeting started at 4:30, not 4:45. So I got in on a motion at the end of what the motion was. I didn't really hear a lot of it, and my cell phone was kind of going in and out. But I think I did. I think I understand the last motion anyway, and that was to maximize or what let's see, it was go through June on the converting some of those short-term sites to long-term sites for the month of June. Is that right, Dave? Yeah.
Yeah, no, understood, Craig. I could tell we're on a sketchy cell phone during that meeting, so apologies for not getting you the full info. But we did have three motions, a total of three motions. The first two failed on the 3-2s, nays 3-2 on the first two motions. So I'll just, for everybody's sake, review these. We had a lot of discussion about the bathhouses and guest behavior and staff and social distancing and disinfection. And so a really robust discussion again about our bathhouses, as those are the pinch points down here. And the comparison of a nightly scenario that we've been led to believe required bathhouse services versus a monthly scenario that does not require bathhouses. And so when we looked at some of those numbers, we looked at about a $500,000 difference between running the park as a monthly park for the summer or trying to continue with our overnight plans. We did a quick little budget review on the budgeted amounts, and the bottom line on the decision to go monthly all summer would be at least about a $500,000 loss. That said, there was a motion to go that way, to call the summer, cancel all the overnight reservations, and to offer just monthly self-contained camping for seasonal monthly guests. That motion did not pass, at which point we had a new motion to just go for the month of June, for that scenario to be in effect in the entire month of June, that we would cancel our overnight and keep the bathhouses closed for June and try to sell as many 1 month, June 1 month onlys as we could on those canceled sites. That motion also failed on a 3-2 nay. Final motion that was offered was to remain closed for bathhouse service and overnight camping until June 15th, and to continue to operate as we are now as a monthly park with closed restrooms, and to really, maximize those sales of monthly sites through June 15th. To take a look at all of our sites right now, see which are available through June 15th, and to sell those for the month. And that was the unanimous motion that passed late in the meeting, where the recommendation now, or the guidance from the park board, is to remain closed for overnight until June 15th, and really a decision to revisit at the June 2nd meeting. The park board scheduled to meet the first Tuesday of June on the 2nd, at which time we would take another look at that date of the 15th.
So, Dave, I'm assuming that that's going to be heavily weighed on by the governor's orders, and what happens between now and that June 2nd meeting. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, and in fact, it's already happened. This afternoon at 3:00, the governor took the stage with his staff and made some announcements concerning June 1st. One of them being the ability to open for overnight camping starting June 1st. We're just processing all of that now, but the news from the governor today, this afternoon, was that he's going to allow overnight camping in developed campgrounds starting June 1st. And yet we sort of knew this last night, or we were anticipating the governor and the release of the camping restrictions on June 1st. We didn't wait until we knew more, I thought was the feeling there, where we sort of set that June 15th date as a local date to open. It would still be contingent on the governor. Had he extended that restriction on overnight camping, we would have respected that. If that had gone through the whole month of June, for example, we would have looked at on the 2nd and adjusted our dates accordingly. But the motion last night to open on the 15th was really on a local level that had the contingency of the governor, but the first now looks like campgrounds can open. That's the discussion we're having tonight, is do we wait till the 15th? Do we go for it on the 1st? In addition to the lifting of the restrictions on the 1st, however, there's a new guide out from the DNR right now today on campgrounds and operations and requirements to operate. And it's got a lot in it. It's got a lot in it concerning bathhouses. And so we need some time to dig into that as well in the next week or so.
I've got a question, Dave. The question about the bathhouses, does that get complicated because we're offering showers at them? What if we didn't offer showers and we offered, bathroom facilities?
Yeah. So, it is the showers, but it is also the sinks and the urinals and the entire indoor space. That shared indoor common space of the bathhouse is what's being scrutinized. And the Department of Health has led us to believe that we need to maintain X number of showers and sinks and toilets per X number of sites, right? There's statutory requirements for operating as a developed campground that mandate bathhouse service for your overnight recreational guests. I checked in with the Department of Health a couple weeks ago on this just to make sure, because we were looking at scenarios. We said, well, what if we just opened for self-contained overnight guests, kept the bathhouses closed? A lot of these RVs have modern amenities and self-contained ability to service themselves. Could we operate as an overnight park without bathhouses? That was my direct question to the Department of Health. A couple of weeks ago, they said no. Today, looking at the DNR guidelines, and their statement says, if as an operator you feel that you can't meet the guidelines and the requirements for cleaning and social distance, you might want to consider only offering self-contained campsites. And there's where we need some more clarity from Department of Health, if that's possible. It's being recommended, but I'm not sure it's possible. But it's, showers were one thing. I asked our local sanitarium, can we close the showers overnight, for example? And that was the one little bit of budge where bathhouse service has to be 24/7 in the toilets and sinks, but maybe not so much the showers. But the entire indoor setting of the bathhouse is, problematic for social distance and the ability to limit the number of guests inside the building. At the park board last night, we all were really, I think, realistic in our assessment of our bathhouses and the inability to limit guest access. One family per use idea is being suggested. That works in a small campground of a dozen sites in one bathhouse building where you can sort of schedule people into it. It simply wouldn't work in a 4 bathhouses, 300 sites campground like we have.
Okay.
But yeah, so with all the news coming out of St. Paul today and the DNR guidelines on campgrounds being made available today, we've got some process to do on that and what our options are come June 1st, come June 15th. But as of now, the park board passed a motion to hold off on overnight camping till the 15th.
Okay, so that sounds pretty straightforward, easy to understand why they made that call, and we'll have to dig into a little bit of the what the impact of that is going to be, potentially how that could change in the future as well. It's crazy to think that pretty much at every meeting we end up having, we have to make calls, based on new information. So that's something that we definitely should give ourselves some credit for. Does anybody have any questions for Dave about that plan?
I guess I have a question, guys. When we did this last time, the park board had made a motion to open to seasonals, and that was contingent on the fact that we voted our approval of it, which we did as a council. Now, are we allowing them to have the power to do this and we don't have a say? I'm trying to understand when we're supposed to give our approval by motion and when we're not. Because I have some questions. We have a lot of people coming up here right now. Anyway, they're camping in gravel pits up the Gunflint Trail. They're camping in campgrounds up the Gunflint Trail. I went to Two Harbors grocery shop on Saturday, and I will tell you the people that lined the shore was incredible, the cars. If they're all North Shore people and Duluth on up, that's great, but I don't think that's happening. I've heard from businesses in town, they're seeing people from everywhere. So I just want to, I know there's a people aspect, don't get me wrong. I'm not ignoring that. I think there's also a financial responsibility aspect. So that's why I'm asking the questions. I think I want to look at the pros and cons of everything and try to make a decision.
Well, let me try and weigh in a little bit, Kelly, before you talk about when you're supposed to say yay or nay to their decision. I think approach it instead from weigh in and give them feedback and tell them where you're at as a council on this issue. And if it turns out that's in conflict with their decision, then we'll figure out how to deal with that. But I know that they'll appreciate hearing all of your opinions on it. I mean, these are all really difficult decisions, and the more guidance that folks can get, us from the state, but I think also the park board and the other boards from the city council, that's a good thing. So if there's something to discuss about that issue, then I think this is the time to do it.
Well, I think that if we would have had the information we had yesterday, we might have had a different motion. But I think the reason why we went to the 15th was to say, okay, if the governor opens this up on the 1st of June or 2nd or 10th or whatever, at least, I guess we're giving us some time to figure out a way to keep the bathrooms the way that Dave and his team down there, I think that's what we're concerned about is the bathrooms and keeping them cleaned. And maybe they need some more time to figure that out. I don't know, but I don't know. I feel we probably would have had a motion to just open it June 1st if the governor said we could. Then we'd have to decide, is that going to work for us? Are we ready for that? And then that's what we'd be talking about right now is, are we ready for that? So as far as the city council, I think we can decide what we want to decide. I don't think you're going to step on any toes in the park board. I think we're kind of looking at just trying to follow the lay of the land and the rules that are set out before us and what wiggle room we have. And now that we know what our wiggle room is after June 1st, that's what we can look at. So I don't know, Dave, if you see that any differently, I guess.
Well, yeah, thanks, Craig. So, I mean, the June 1st green light from the governor still is contingent on this plan that the DNR has just issued today. Part of that plan is, a lot of internal changing about adopting preparedness plans that we haven't adopted yet, and then really going into those bathhouses and making structural changes. First read on the DNR guidelines / rules talking about no hand dryers, paper towel dispensers. Well, all our bathhouses are hand dryers. And so we're not in a position of readiness for June 1st, even if we wanted to be, based on the release of the rules and guidelines today that are going to take a week or 3 to implement. And even it's going to take a week just for clarity on these rules. So, we could try to be open June 1st because it's okay by the governor, but it's a stretch to imagine meeting the requirements of the just released, guidelines for operating.
Yeah, and
that's good information. Go ahead.
My position isn't that we have to open June 1st because he said he could, but I'm trying to find the balance. I mean, we're also trying to move forward on a liquor store city hall project that's pretty important. We have listed that as one of the top things we wanted to work on. There's some big dollars there. Not that it can't be put off, but again, you kind of have to look at all these different things as we consider and how far do we push things out? Why are we pushing things out? And when people ask, I just want to be able to say, yes, we can officially open, but because of the DNR regulations on our bathhouse, obviously we're not ready. When we have those things in place to protect the public, then we're comfortable moving forward. That's the kind of information that's really good. So I want to have that discussion, make sure I'm understanding so I can answer to the public if they ask questions, because you're right, it's changing every day. And how we make sure we're doing the best we can to cover our financial responsibilities as well. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, Kelly, and just to touch on the finances in June, and that was part of the decision last night with the park board to really go with sort of the lesser of all evils. The first 2 weeks of June, we have 180 reservations for a total of $45,000 expected revenue. So that 45,000 was the, you know, the least we were willing to lose, I think, in those motions. That's why those broader motions to close for all of June weren't palatable. The last 2 weeks of June, we expect $80,000 to $90,000 in sales.
So Dave, this information you're giving us I think is really helpful to help understand, how to really move forward with it, with any kind of decision. So at the next park board meeting, which is what you said, June 2nd, if they decided at that time to amend their motion and call for an earlier opening of the overnight rates, would you be ready, or would you be capable of doing that?
Yeah, I can't answer that tonight, Tim, because I just got the rules like an hour ago, and my instinct is yes, if we get more guidance from Department of Health, if the interpretation of the rule is so one of them is like, social distance in a bathhouse. We can't guarantee that down here. We got crowded bathhouses. And so we got to get over that. We got to either say people got to cover up if they're going in, because that, I think, is in the guidelines that if you cannot maintain distance, you need to cover up. We would have to adopt something like that. But it's an overall comfort level too that I think we're all, not 100% on these bathhouses being compliant, and yet the 2nd of June is going to come and we're going to have a different story because it's a bit over 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks out. That's a lot of time to interpret these new rules and to adapt these new rules. And so I can't answer with certainty tonight when we're going to be ready based on this new information that was just released today. I can say though that the cancellation process is hard to go back from, and that we sort of need to know tonight or tomorrow or whenever we need to know when to cancel people. Those 180 people that are coming June 1st through the 15th, we can't wait till the 2nd to cancel. We need to know this week.
Right, that's a really good point. The conversation about readiness too, I think, Dave, is really an important one. That whether or not we're, going beyond what the governor's recommendations are and the CDC recommendations are, the purpose that we're looking to do this stuff is to keep people as safe as we possibly can, and being in a position of readiness with that in mind, I think is pretty important. I mean, it's the concept of, better safe than sorry, to a certain extent, saying that, let's make sure that we can comply as well as we possibly can, so that when people do come, they'll understand that they're safe and that they'll be as safe as they possibly can be. So yeah, I view that the park board's decision is a conservative one, but I think that it's also one that we can palate financially as an institution, and also that makes a clear communication to guests that we're going to be making changes and then we'll be open. So I don't know if there's that's my take on it. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to say, or if Kelly, but Dave's explanation speaks to you in the concerns that you have.
Yeah, it does. I wanted to make sure I have a clear understanding, because last time, and Mike addressed it, last time we actually kind of made a nod and a vote and had a motion. So I wanted to make sure I was understanding that our procedures are the same and consistent. And it did answer my questions as to how we move forward. Dave, do you know, just for numbers' sake, for my brain, about how many seasonal campers show up now June 1st or through the 15th? I know most of them have to be in by the 15th. Has anybody canceled with everything that's going on?
Yeah, we've had a few cancellations, Kelly, from that seasonal fleet. Canadians, a couple of Canadians, that are restricted with the border, have just pulled the plug on the whole year. We've had two other U.S. sites that just chosen not to travel due to health risks on their own accord. So we are seeing just a handful of cancellations on monthlies, but yet the June is the time of return. You're right. Like most of them come in those first couple weeks of June, so we could expect another 50 to 60 monthly returning in the next couple of weeks. And we still have monthly inventory from those cancellations, from those unexpected cancellations, from a couple of marginally small monthly sites that haven't been easy to place off the waiting list. We've been able to offer those to local contractors. And I just got an email from a traveling nurse that is looking at, coming on board up here and would, need that type of housing. So we do have flexibility in our monthly fleet right now, and we're able to accommodate first come, first serve folks that are needing monthly.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Cool.
And just as what I'm working on the most right now is a ruling from the Department of Health on bathhouses and overnight operations. Because like I say, with the just now DNR guidelines, they make a call that says, if you're an operator and you feel like you can't safely operate your bathhouses, you may want to go on a self-contained overnight option. And we got to check that, because I asked that directly to the department 2 weeks ago, and I did not interpret that as being an option. So that is going to add to the mix where we might decide that, yeah, bathhouses are just too much of an animal to wrangle, and we could go nightly self-contained if the Department of Health allows it.
Gotcha. So is that something that then you'll be gathering information on, and you'll be bringing that to the June 2nd meeting, and then we'll be getting updates, at the Wednesday following that, as to what the park board is thinking in that regard?
You bet, Jay. Yeah, my plans for June 2nd are readiness, based on these new guidelines from DNR, really give us an update on, are we ready? Couldn't we be ready by June 15th? And then if not, what are some alternative scenarios for operating without bathhouses?
Okay.
Potentially scenarios for operating with limited bathhouses. If the Department of Health tells us there's still some sort of ratio to maintain and we have to limit the facilities that are made available, we might have to operate with fewer sites. I think there's just a couple of different ways we'll have to look at this and have a few plans ready to go for June 2nd.
I guess anecdotally, Dave, what do you think the impact of switching to a self-contained setup, as an option so that we could offer nightlies, to feel safer about being able to open up for that? And also, obviously we have to meet the guidelines, but do you think that what do you think the impact on that would be if we said, okay, yeah, sure, you can come and stay, but you got to use everything on board? Obviously that would eliminate tent campers, right? Yeah, I don't know. That's probably a possible thing to pull out, like with real numbers, but percentages wise, or like, how many people that show up during the summer, is it 5% in tents or 25% in tents? Is it, are most people traveling with RVs now, so it might not be as much of an impact? I'm sure you'll look at that, but just like for now, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sure, Anton. Just by the numbers, we only have 47 tent sites out of 300. We're definitely known as an RV park. And so tent sites have never been a big cash yield for us. I would say $50,000 is what we make on tents all summer. It's not a big number. So losing tents for the summer, not a big deal in the six-figure scheme of things. The rest of the fleet being RVs and full hookup sites versus electric water only is where we're imbalanced. We have way more electric water non-sewer sites than electric water sewer full hookup sites. And the appetite for those non-sewer sites is not as strong. Everybody wants a full hookup, especially if you're going that self-contained route. And so as a site count balance, we're off. We don't have more full hookup sites than electric water only. But the demand is tough to gauge. The calls lately have been, we're self-contained, we want to be there now. And so I think that's really out there and really able to be met, or at least if the message becomes we're self-contained park for the summer, that's, I think, not going to be a big problem for a lot of RVers. In fact, yeah, it would be interesting to see what that looks like. My feeling is we would do okay with it.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So the park board update was the big one that I had, and the statement that we had Patrick and Mike write up from the last meeting. Are there any other things that we need to discuss at this meeting about the emergency itself?
Can I
Yeah.
just maybe
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
I just have one thing for Dave while he's here, and that's the issue of the downtown public bathrooms and the plan for those.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've heard a couple of comments about that as well. So the downtown bathrooms, as well as the garbage cans and other waste receptacles around the city. That's been a concern that people have talked to me about.
Yeah, we placed a bunch of cans today, actually. And it's our intent to have the bathrooms open this weekend. But it's just been a difficult challenge to figure out how to add the additional staffing. So we really do rely on Dave's staff to be on board to be able to operate 7 days a week.
Yeah, and we have weekend staff right now. We have custodial staff on the weekends that are able and willing to service the downtown restroom and the downtown garbage cans. Mm-hmm. I think the plan is to try to proceed with those this weekend. Our staff is planning on being available, as well as a touch base with Pete Greshik on the downtown porta potty fleet. And he's willing and able to put out our usual 3 or 4 behind Artist Point, or out at Artist Point behind the Coast Guard, and then 3 or 4 at the Boulder Park parking lot is the plan for this weekend for porta potties.
Cool. That sounds good. Thanks for asking that, Tim. That was something that I had a question about as well, but I just didn't remember it. Anton, do you have something?
I guess I just maybe I missed it or just didn't follow too. But going back to what we were just talking about with the shutting down the bathhouses, so it's the clarification if the DNR would allow us to basically make everything self-contained, right? So we have to get clarification and guidance on that, as well as then as a group or park board and the council make that decision to switch to that, right? We couldn't just say like, okay, we're going to keep the bathhouses shut down and do nightly rentals and everybody's self-contained. We have to get that clarification first. Is that right?
That's right, Anton. Clarification from the Department of Health.
Gotcha. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Cool. Good to know. Anything else from anyone?
Just a couple things, and Mike can probably answer one fast. Are we continuing status quo with the liquor store as is and only doing the curbside delivery? And then my second question was, with things starting to move forward, opening up, how quickly do we think we will be back in council chambers all together? Will we move to that in June? We know that we can be 6 feet apart in there. We've done it. So I just wondered what our plan is that way.
Yeah, it's a good question. Really, I think that decision is up to us to make as far as when we start gathering in person versus being remote. But it's yeah, I don't know. Mike, do you have any insight into that?
The governor's order seems to allow it, certainly at June 1st. The problem will be that there's a limitation on the size of any gathering, and so we can't have more than 10 people in the room at a time, which, our record of meetings, that most of the time that'll work just fine. But we may need to make some accommodations for meetings that have larger issues to deal with, or multiple groups of people coming. But if you're interested in trying that starting in June, then we can work that up. And as far as the liquor store goes, we don't have a tentative plan yet to do anything other than curbside. So it's the same sort of issue with the space. It's really difficult to imagine how, other than just letting them in the door, we can really let people past the counter and maintain any sort of social distancing. And I don't know that we perceive a real benefit in just letting people in the door over what's happening now. So instead, we're just working to increase the number of phone lines that we're able to deal with at the same time, and try and get a little bit better at that. We can talk about potentially increasing hours at some point too, if we get fairly stable. But otherwise, I think that this situation is just going to keep us fairly limited on what we can do there.
So Mike, with our operation now, do you have an idea of how we're doing comparatively with sales?
Not as well, and I can't really quote you a good number off the top of my head, but I do intend to put something like that into the packet for next week's conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It's good. So that's something for us to think about at one of the next meetings. If we want to go back to that more traditional model, we can certainly entertain that, and then we'll also have some more information about that about the liquor store performance at the next meeting. Anything else? I don't have anything else. So
I have one thing, and it refers to the highway project. Since we blocked off that intersection by First on the highway, a lot of traffic that's moving west comes off the highway at a pretty good pace right up to Second, behind, then they go behind Johnson's Big Dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Stop sign for First coming down by the condos is actually out on the median, So I've witnessed almost three accidents today because cars come off or belly dumpers come off and they go right off, and someone's coming down and they're going to the stop sign, but the stop sign is actually out into the lane of traffic as trucks are coming off the highway. I don't know if it's worthwhile moving that stop sign up a little higher, or putting in 2 stop signs there, or a yield sign or something. I think someone's going to get hit there. There's a couple belly dumpers that went through there pretty fast, and I've had 3 belly dumpers come down 8th Avenue today, and I don't know why they're coming down 8th Avenue, but it's something to address with the state project anyway.
Okay, we'll bring that up with them, Craig.
There's a lot of cars that go up First now because it's really busy, and they're going to make a right-hand turn, and the cars are coming down, and it's moving pretty quick out there, and it's just if people slow down, it'll be okay. That's the only thing that I can see. If there's a way to slow it down, I think we can accomplish that.
I guess, Mike, if you have ability to make some communication too, like I understand they're going up the Gunflint right now, and they're going up loaded but coming down empty, and they're like, I know they're trying to make as many trips a day as they can, but they're hauling like down the Gunflint Trail on the 40-mile-an-hour stretch before the business park. like really fast.
Doing.
So
I'll bring it up with the MnDOT and the sheriff.
Thank you.
Are we, Mike, are we still doing, like, are we starting our Thursday meetings with them tomorrow?
I believe so.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, so that's all things to bring up. I don't know if you've also seen some of the signs. We have 2 or 3 signs around town that are good for business access instead of business access. So the spell check didn't work on that sign. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I think it's actually kind of ridiculous. But I've seen lots of pictures of that showing up on various different social medias. Pointing out that business is spelled BUSI instead of BUIS. Like the sign
I
say.
think we're above making fun of anybody, and we know people are human.
Yeah.
So I think that we try to skip some of that and not really, that's not for us to address. I've seen the talk on social media, and I'm really tired of people being so nasty anymore. So we don't know what happened. It's not a big deal. They say if you read the first and the last letter, you can go through and read a whole sentence. So we
Right.
know what happens.
I mentioned it because I thought it was actually kind of amusing. If you want to distract people from what's going on, that's one way to do it. So maybe there's strategy behind that. But other than that, so we have our meeting tomorrow, or we'll have that WebEx meeting tomorrow. Anything else? Tim, I see you're unmuted. Did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say it, those business signs just caught my attention. I mean, maybe they'll catch everybody else's attention too, so.
Yeah. I don't anticipate that that's going to be very high on the punch list of things to do right now. As far as I can tell, they're moving a lot of dirt right now down at Broadway, and it's I was amazed that there even was that much dirt down there. So that's pretty interesting to see all that happening. But anything else for the meeting here? All right, I think we're getting to the end. So we'll meet next Wednesday, and we will have some more information to consider. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, fielding people's concerns. And Dave, thanks for all the work you're doing to make sure that the campground can operate safely this summer. So I think that's where we're at. And the meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Everybody.